First of all, thank you for the opportunity to explain a little bit about what we're doing in the Netherlands. And I have to say I'm really interested to try some of the new inventions of the food and the drinks that I saw here and were presented here. I'm really curious about the fermented ant birch syrup, which should be amazing. The beer example is also really amazing, so I hope to enjoy many of those things in near future. But let's skip to what we're doing in the Netherlands. I think this picture says a lot. We try to make a bridge between public entities and private institutions or private companies that are able to come up with good solutions. So this is basically the idea. I could have presented only one slide, but I'd like to take you along with some other slides. But keep this in mind while I'm going to the presentation. So I work for an economic board. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the idea of an economic board. It's actually a triple helix setting, which means that knowledge institutions, companies, and governments work together. We deliberately try to bring those institutions together because we see that by working alone, we see that there's normally a big gap from maybe a research institution towards an entrepreneur. The example that was given just now is, I think, a good example what was happening in the Netherlands as well. So this is why we came up with a solution to work together closely in a triple helix setting, and this is what we're doing with the economic board. We focus on societal challenges. For us, these are the big transition themes like energy transition, the transition towards a circular economy, and also the transition of the healthcare system. We used to have a curative healthcare. I think everywhere in the world it's like this. But we want to switch to a preventive healthcare system where we stimulate people to adapt to a healthy lifestyle in order to avoid big expenses in the future and thus keep our system sustainable. This is what I said already. We are working on big societal challenges and we like to create an impact with this. And we believe that it's good that all incremental steps towards a better future are good, but we do think that we need systemic change in order to really make an impact. This means that we need to change things. We need to change things in a big way and not only a small step, and this also means that we need to involve many stakeholders, and this is the complicated thing to do. The triple helix setting helps us with this, but still it's a big challenge. But we are doing stuff that is really having an impact. Last year we started with a retrofit program for HOAs. Those are house owners associations, and we started with a pilot. And within a year we were able to come up with a fund of 600 million euros, which was kick-started actually by the pilot. So how was this possible? I think it was only possible because we were able to generate a good example locally. The regional government was involved and also regional companies were involved, and they were proving actually that the proof of concept was workable, doable, scalable, name it. And then from the start on, we also said to the national government, well, look, we're gonna do something special here. If we show you that it's possible, are you committed to provide some funding as well? So the national government was involved from the start, and they said, well, if you prove that it's possible, we are committed. And they said, we provide a guarantee. So with the guarantee, the private institutions like the banks, they are willing to put in their finance, and because the banks were committed, also the European Commission was interested, and now they're also co-investing. So you see that by organizing yourself in a way that you're connecting the local to the regional, to the national, to the international, you are really able to create a big impact in actually very little time. So this is for me a good example of systemic change, and this is what we like to achieve a lot more, because there's a lot of work to be done. So keep in mind, we are doing those systemic changes where we need the whole, all the stakeholders to participate. But we also try to help those SMEs that have solutions that are scalable. To give you an idea, this is a company that is creating how do you call it? A community service system for car rentals, and those cars are electric cars, and they are the electricity is being supplied by solar panels, and those cars were the first cars that are able to create what we call a smart electricity network. So when they're not used and there's actually quite a lot of electricity demand, the electricity network can get the electricity out of the cars in order for the sustainable energy to be delivered to the homes, because when the cars are not used, well, why wouldn't we use the energy that is stored in the batteries of the cars? So this is actually a pretty amazing company, and they are really scaling up right now. Our king is going to open a new facility. The CEO of Renault is going to come to the Netherlands, and this is one of those examples where we see that it began with a small idea, and we were able just to provide a little loan from an energy fund that helped to kickstart this company. And by providing only a little loan, we see that we were able to create a real impact. And I'm really, I really think that this company is gonna change some things in this world. So this is a good thing. So we are doing the good stuff, I think, but it's crowded with support actors in our ecosystem. We call it an ecosystem where all the actors are, and we see that there's a lot of institutions on a local level, on a national level, on a regional level. And they also have tools and instruments in different phases of development of innovative companies. So we see that maybe it's a little bit overcrowded, and maybe we're not organizing ourselves as efficient as we like to. So this is why we believe that we need to reconsider what we're doing, and that we need to be objective, and we have to look into the mirror, and maybe we don't always like what we see, but we have to be objective and try to do it better. So this is one of the conclusions of the Interreg project we're participating in. That actually we need more money to support innovative SMEs compared to other regions. We have very little money, and we see that innovative SMEs are being bought by other regions in order to try to create some impact over there. So we want more money, but more important, we think that we need to keep on investing in the whole ecosystem, and that is all those stakeholders that are involved. We need to come up with an integral approach and not work as one entity and everybody trying to make impact, because then you're obviously losing out on the integral benefits that are out there. So we need to integrate more. this is maybe a familiar picture, and it says that many innovations, they go through a hype. They come up as an idea, they are hyped, and then what happens is that normally it's really complicated to go through the first hype and to really get your product established and to keep it growing and to make sure that it's a sustainable invention out there. So this is pretty hard. It's hard for a company to know whether or not your innovation is gonna be successful, but it's also hard for policymakers like you and me to come up with the right tools and the right instruments to support those companies. So we are aware of this, that that's always going to be difficult, and we will never be able to tell beforehand if it's going to be a big success or not. So we need our instruments to be adaptive. I tried to come up with an example in the box. I don't know if you have the same sort of thing here in Latvia. But basically it's a box with many games, and you can actually play 200 games with one box. So I see it as a toolbox, and for me we should look at our instruments in the same way. We need to have a certain definition of the instrument, but then again the instrument should be flexible in order to be able to adapt to changes in society, because society is changing fast and we need to be adaptive. So this is what I said. We need to bring on this flexibility in our instruments. We want to be able to come up with the right solution for the right entrepreneur. But then again, we also want it to be fair. We don't want to say to the entrepreneur that, for instance, maybe your neighbor, and say, well, you're welcome, and because you know him or her, provide the possibility for funding, and the other one, who maybe you don't know, isn't going to get the money. So it needs to be a fair instrument, but at the same time it needs to be flexible. And this is a big dilemma. How do you organize this, and how can you make sure that that is fair? So we are working with many experts that, because they are working in the field, they know what's happening out there, and they can say, well, this initiative is innovative, and this initiative is probably interesting to support. And maybe it's also good to mention that support isn't only financial support. We think in support also in other ways, like the entrepreneur that was given the stage right now. Providing a stage to entrepreneurs is also a really important way of supporting companies. So to conclude, I think when we look at instruments and what instruments to use, we want it to be flexible. But you also want to create some sort of stability in the network, and you want also entrepreneurs to know where they have to go and who they have to speak to. So we are saying change the instrument when needed, change the conditions when needed, but do not change the actors. I mean, you have to have a familiar face when you're talking to somebody. That always helps. When you know who to speak to. So this is the way we want to be involved in creating those new instruments. And also the picture says the faster you go, the further ahead you have to look. Society is changing fast, and I know that you're living in Latvia and that you are probably focusing on the things that are happening here, but we are in a global economy, and we really should look at the global developments in order to yeah, to make sure that you are doing the right stuff for tomorrow and that you are doing the stuff that our world needs in order to be sustainable. So I guess this is what I wanted to say. To summarize, this is my last slide. It is a question of choosing the right structure. You can see that I use the same building blocks in both pictures, but one structure is much more stable than the other, but you use the same ingredients. So this is the thing we should work on, choosing the right structure. We should be able to look into the mirror and be critical on ourselves and try to improve. And when we do so, I hope that we can try to come up with something like this, which is, I think, still a beautiful example of what we are also trying to do in our society. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's thank Stef.